Well, there are increasing calls for scrutiny on the conduct of short sellers. Questions over proper disclosure swirl around portions of the market. But should regulators be casting a closer eye on the short side of the trade? And if so, where? I spoke earlier with Muddy Waters Capital co-founder and CIO Carson Block.
I don't know how accurate the notion is. Certainly, I've noted that there are law firms and lawyers who appear to be either hired by some of the companies that have been targeted by activist short sellers, who are out there propounding that regulators should take a closer look. And I suspect that there is some real lobbying that's occurring, but I don't know whether, at least in the US, whether regulators are having a closer look. Canada, it's very difficult to say. I think there are real differences between the understanding or sophistication of the Ontario Securities Commission and some of the other provincial regulators when it comes to short selling or activist short selling. Should regulators take a look? Well, obviously, if there are abuses, yes, but I'm skeptical. I'm really disbelieving the notion that there are widespread abuses. And here's the reason why. I've known from day one that because I'm saying something unpopular, and if I'm successful, probably a number of retail investors will flood the regulator with complaints. I know that everything that I say and do as an activist short seller will receive scrutiny from the regulators. And that's in contrast to when you see analysts on the long side or long side investors who seem to be much more careless with the things they say and often do than short activists. So I think we get a lot of scrutiny already. So I'm pretty skeptical that there's a problem. But obviously, anywhere that there has been wrongdoing, ideally is an area that gets prosecuted.
So let's make a distinction, though, would you not, between certain types of short sellers, the activist short seller who puts his face, his name, his firm, his reputation in public on the line. Can we distinguish that from the anonymous, from the reports that are published in places that don't require that kind of accountability?
Well, I think obviously there's a distinction, and I'll just go back in time to when I started this business in 2010. So I got ready to publish my first short report, and there weren't many people out there doing public short reports then. So, in fact, I was totally unaware of them. As far as I knew, I was more or less the first person to write this way. And I decided to put my name and even biography at that time on the website and on the report because I thought it would lend credibility. 36 hours later, I was thinking I'd made the wrong decision. The amount of vitriol, threats that come toward you are significant. So I understand, I don't think that activist short sellers who publish pseudonymously do so to escape accountability. And I also want to be very clear about something that relates to what I just said. As an activist short seller, whether you're pseudonymous or not, regulators can and will figure out very quickly who you are if they want to.
Right.
Because regulators will see the trades and they will go to your broker, who holds this account. So you should know, unless you're a complete idiot, as an activist short seller, that you're not escaping regulatory scrutiny. Now, there are people who get death threats as a result of what they publish. When you're talking about situations involving overseas companies or operations of overseas companies, think the Dino Huang situation, where he was imprisoned for about 2 years in China for a report, his work on a report that was actually, I think, quite credible and vindicated. So there are a lot of, as well as lawsuits. I mean, a lot of these companies, in almost every case, have far more resources than the activist short seller does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that in many cases, when an activist short seller publishes on a company, the CEO of that company earns probably more in 1 year than the lifetime earnings of that short activist. So when you think about the distribution of resources, they like to sue people who don't have a lot of money, just the way McDonald's has in the past famously sued food activists who didn't have a lot of money. So that is what is behind the desire to remain pseudonymous or anonymous, and I don't think it's because they're trying to get away with things that they shouldn't be doing.